Hello and welcome to SeattleMUN's 2023 FlexDive video about MUN vocabulary. Starting off, we're going to be talking about the position paper. And a key part to understanding what goes in a position paper is the background guide, which is a set of documents that is presented to delegates before a conference that catalyzes conference preparation. This typically includes a 10 to 15 page background guide per topic. Now, what is an actual position paper? It is a one-page research paper that each delegate writes prior to committee, detailing past UN and national action, the country's current situation, and proposed solutions. And a position paper is required to win an award. Now going into every individual paragraph, for the introduction, it is a very general overview of the issue and why the topic needs urgent UN action. For the past UN action, it is every past UN resolution and laws that your country wrote to support or reject the issue at hand. For the current UN action, you guessed it, it's the current UN resolutions and laws in your country that support or don't support the issue that is being debated. And finally, the solutions paragraph is by far the most important and biggest paragraph. And in your position paper, it should be 2 to 3 solutions that are both actionable and creative that you might bring to debate. It can either be new or based on past resolutions.
Moving on to rules of procedure, the flow of debate is basically the structure of debate followed by model United Nations committees. You'll see these at every conference and they vary depending on the type of committee that you're in. The decorum is a set of rules that regulates the behavior of the delegates during both formal and informal interactions. This is basically just code for how you should act at a model United Nations conference. The primary speakers list is a period of formal debate which happens after roll call, in which delegates debate which topic should be addressed first. This is 2 speakers, 4 topic, for and against. So basically, if you wanted to debate topic A before you debate topic B, there would be 2 speakers that spoke for doing topic A before topic B, and then 2 speakers against doing topic A over topic B first. The secondary speakers list is a period of formal debate, which typically occurs after the agenda has been set, which is the purpose of the primary speakers list, where delegates give 1-minute speeches introducing their initial viewpoint of their country's viewpoint on that specific topic. A moderated caucus is also a debate format that allows delegates to make short comments on a specific sub-issue. The motion must include the overall speaking time, the time per speaker, and the sub-issue to be discussed. For example, if the topic was whether chocolate ice cream is better than vanilla ice cream, you would say the delegate of X country motions for a 10-to-1 moderated caucus on vanilla ice cream itself, or something like that, if that makes sense. An unmoderated caucus is another type of caucus, which is another form of debate, which delegates are given longer periods of unstructured time to meet with other delegates, to discuss their viewpoints and plans informally, form blocks, and work on writing resolutions. This is the period of debate which the first unmoderated caucus happens. That's when you're allowed to start using your computers and start working on a bundle of ideas. A point is a specific request or note made by delegates to interrupt debate for a specific purpose. You'll learn more about what specific points are later. And a motion, like a motion for a moderated caucus, is a specific action made by the delegates to direct debate in a certain direction.
All right, and next is the flow of debate. This is basically how the committee is going to operate and flow through each session. So first of all, we have roll call. Roll call is basically when the dais does a roll call of all the delegates and notes down if the delegate chooses to be present or present at voting. Some of my other flex app have already talked about this, so I'm not going to go into detail. But next, we have motion to open debate. Traditionally, a delegate sets the motion to open debate, and it usually passes. Please pass this one. Next, we have the motion to open the primary speakers list. The primary speakers list is the first time the delegates get to speak and can talk about which topic they want to talk about in this session, basically. After that, we have the motion to set the agenda, but which a delegate chooses to do, and usually that is setting the topic that the delegates are going to debate on for the rest of the session. Once you set the agenda, we open the dais opens the secondary speakers list. This is different from the primary speakers list, as now there's an agenda, a topic that the delegates can actually debate on. Now, the secondary speakers list usually can move on to different caucuses, and we have two of those. One is either the moderate caucus, where delegates still have to be in their seats and conduct debate formally. An unmoderated caucus is when the dais is now moderated, as the name suggests. Delegates can freely move around and converse with other delegates, and possibly, foreshadowing, talk about a possible resolution. Next, we have a motion to introduce an amendment. Now, this can also happen during the secondary speakers list. And so can a motion to introduce a working paper. Normally, delegates do this in an unmoderated caucus, as they get to discuss with other delegates and form different caucuses of their own. But yeah, and once a working paper is introduced, the delegates get to introduce a draft resolution. Now, note that this is not a final resolution, this is a draft. The draft will then be edited according to what happens in voting block. Voting block is basically when delegates have to vote on the resolution and can make amendments or choose to vote on the current one. Now, there are three types of voting types. There's three types of voting. One is voting by acclamation, one is voting by roll call, and one is to divide the question. I'm not again, I think Arushi is going to talk about that, so I'm not going to go that in deep detail, but basically that is how debate works in Model United Nations. Once all of this is done, a resolution is generally passed, but it's your committee session and you get to choose.
Moving on, we'll be going over points and motions. So there are three different points that we use at MUN Northwest. First is point of order. This is usually used when a delegate sees an error in the rule of procedures and would like to tell the dais that something is going on in the rules of procedures and they want to amend it. The second one is point of personal privilege, for example, having to use the restroom and personal reasons. If a delegate thinks it's too hot, the room is too hot, or needs to use the restroom, they would say point of personal privilege. And the final one is point of inquiry. This is usually a question about rules of procedure, but under dais discretion, it could also be a question about other things going on in committee. And then there is the right of reply. Right of reply is used to talk back to a delegate when there is example of personal insult. For example, the delegate of Australia says, the delegate of United States shoes are really ugly. In this situation, there would be a right of reply. Other than a personal insult, the right of reply would not be used. A motion is a specific action made by delegates to direct debate in a certain direction. This is a general thing, but different motions are like motions for a moderated caucus, unmoderated caucus, etc. A roundtable is where a delegate motions for a roundtable, which gives all the delegates in the committee 1 minute speaking time to gauge all their opinions, and it basically forces all the delegates to talk and contribute. And then there is the straw poll, which is a poll where delegates raise their placards to gauge agreement in a committee. It's basically like a fancy vote. And once the motions are over, they will be moving on to resolutions. So the first part of resolutions is the bundle of ideas. This is where delegates come together and write down their initial thoughts and basically make up a very, very rough draft of ideas. At this point, it's just the delegates working on the paper. And then it's the working paper. This is when the resolution papers so the bundle of ideas were approved by a dais and will become later draft resolutions. It's where the dais will help format the papers and help contribute and edit. And then the working paper becomes a draft resolution. This is where the working papers are formally submitted to the dais, and a minimum of 1/3 of the committee are signatories. Within the draft resolution, there are preambulatory clauses and operative clauses and subclauses. Preamps are basically introductory clauses at the beginning of a resolution paper, and they basically lead into the operative clauses. Operative clauses are clauses that recommend actions for the committee, and they're basically the main content of the resolution paper. The number of preamps and the number of operative clauses are the same. Subclauses are basically subpoints inside of operative clauses. They basically specify what the operative clauses will do. And all in all, resolutions are actions that will be implemented after the committee sessions by the committee. And within the resolution, there will be a number of signatories and sponsors. Signatories are basically delegations on a draft resolution that want to see it voted upon. So they want to vote upon the resolution. And sponsors are delegates on a draft resolution that contributed the most to writing the resolution and will vote for, present, and explain the resolution.
Next up, we have the voting block, which is typically the part of debate that confuses many delegates. A voting block is a committee stage in which resolutions and amendments are presented and voted upon. There are 3 ways to vote. Voting by acclamation is a voting method in which delegates must unanimously be in favor of a resolution in order for it to pass. And this is done by saying yay or nay. Voting by placard is a voting method in which delegates raise their placards for and against a resolution. And this is typically the preferred method of voting because it is quick and efficient. Lastly, there is voting by roll call, which is a voting method in which the dais calls out each country's name in alphabetical order, and delegates must respond with their voting choice. An amendment is a minor change or addition designed to improve a resolution that may not have been passed.
Moving on to some really fun modernization jargon. These are just words that you'll hear typically that don't always get defined very well, and so we want to make sure that you understand what they mean. A bloc. You'll see this in your background guide. It's a group of countries who have a common goal and want to work together on certain principles and incorporate them into a resolution like you learned about earlier. Blocks are typically done by maybe it's level of maybe it's the economy level of a country, maybe it's whether it's developing or not developing, maybe it's specific views on the topic. It just depends on the topic itself. A delegate is what you are. It's a participant of a MUN conference specifically representing a country and one of the different councils present. A delegation is a group of delegates, which often represents a team of a university or another MUN, like a MUN club in a different school. They're usually part of the same institution, and sometimes they're divided into different councils, sometimes they're not. It just depends on your delegation itself. This could mean there's usually a head delegate, or maybe there's a group of MUN club leaders at your school. It just depends. A dilatory means a ruling that the motion is considered out of order by dais discretion in order to progress debate. This doesn't mean that what you're motioning for is wrong. If your dais rules something dilatory, that means that they don't think it's conducive to the flow of debate itself, and that there could be a better motion presented that would actually help debate move forward. The dais is the group of people that are leading this committee. Typically, this is the director, chair, and assistant director or assistant directors. This is a group of people that lead your specific committee. This is what staff are. To have the floor means to have the floor means to have been given the right to speak in debate before the chair or in a moderated caucus. This includes primary speakers list. This includes speaking in a secondary speakers list. This includes speaking in a moderated speakers list. Basically, it means that you have the right to speak and you right now have the right to talk and no one else can. Personal pronouns are something to avoid. Things like I, me, you, he, she, they, and more are not allowed during formal debate. An example of this can include, instead of saying, I believe that, let's see, watermelon is the best fruit, you would say, the delegate of X country believes that watermelon is the best fruit because you're representing a specific country. To smile upon is a phrase used by the dais, meaning they would encourage something to happen in debate. For example, the dais might say, the dais would highly smile upon a motion for a moderated caucus on X sub-issue. SeattleMUN is so much fun. It's an online application that's used to monitor and facilitate debate run by the dais. This is what you'll see projected up onto your projector screen that your dais will run, and it basically just kind of helps them keep track of debate, but also lets you see what's going on, and you can point out like there's a mistake or something like that. A placard is the sign signifying your country. This is used within voting to showcase one's presence and to signal towards a chair, or even take roll call. This is like the physical like card looking thing that you'll get, and it has your country's name on it, and it should have your committee too. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you so much for watching on behalf of all SeattleMUN 2023 Flex staff.